Have you ever felt like anxiety is just who you are? Like it's stitched into your identity, something you carry in your chest, in your breath, in the way you overthink every little thing? You try to meditate. You journal. You go for walks. You breathe. You distract yourself with podcasts and playlists and scrolling. But somehow it always comes back. Sound familiar? If so, take a deep breath with me right now. Inhale. Exhale. Because I want you to hear this with your full presence. You are not broken. And you are definitely not alone. Every single day, millions of people silently carry the invisible weight of anxiety. Some hide it behind a smile. Some bury it beneath success. Some drown it in caffeine, busyness, or pretending everything's fine. But deep down, there's a restlessness. A feeling that something's off. A quiet panic beneath the surface of your day-to-day. And here's the truth no one talks about. Most of what we've been told about anxiety is flat out wrong. Yes. What if I told you that your struggle with anxiety isn't really your fault? That so much of your suffering comes not just from the anxiety itself, but from the lies you've been taught about what it means. Lies that make you feel weak. Lies that make you chase unrealistic cures. Lies that keep you stuck, ashamed, and disconnected from your own inner wisdom. Sound dramatic? Maybe. But it's also dangerously true. In today's video, I want to walk with you through the 3 biggest lies about anxiety that you probably heard, believed, and maybe even repeated to yourself without realizing it. And more importantly, want to offer you a new way to look at yourself, not as someone who needs to be fixed, but as someone who's been carrying too much for too long without the truth, the tools, or the space to heal. So let me ask you, what if your anxiety wasn't a curse, but a message? What if you're not meant to fight it but to listen to it? What if everything you need to find peace is already inside you? Would you be willing to stop running for just a few minutes and turn inward instead? Because this video might just be the most important 10 minutes you give yourself all week. Not because I have the answers, but because you just haven't been given the right questions yet. Together, we're going to unlearn the noise, peel back the layers of misinformation, and reconnect with the simple, powerful truth about what anxiety really isn't, what it isn't. And no, this isn't going to be some toxic positivity message telling you to just think happy thoughts. This is real, raw, grounded in both science and soul. Because healing isn't about perfection, it's about honesty. About finally seeing clearly what's been clouded for so long. So if you're tired of the cycle, if you're ready to stop surviving and start living again, then stay with me. We're about to expose the 3 lies about anxiety you still believe. And trust me, once you see them clearly, you won't be able to unsee them. Let's begin. Take one more deep breath. Let the tension drop from your shoulders. And open your heart to a truth that might just change everything. Let's start with one of the most harmful lies we've been told, maybe the most painful of all. If I have anxiety, it means something's wrong with me. Have you ever thought that? Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you felt it deep in your chest. The shame, the guilt, the sense that everyone else is out there doing life while you're stuck battling your own mind. I want you to pause right now and hear this clearly. Anxiety does not mean you're broken. It does not mean you're weak. And it absolutely does not mean there's something wrong with you. Let's reframe this. Anxiety isn't a character flaw. It's not a defect. It's not some mark of failure or evidence that you can't handle life. In fact, anxiety is a perfectly natural, biological response. It's your body's way of trying to protect you. Let me say that again. Anxiety is protection, not punishment. It's your nervous system sounding an alarm. It's a built-in survival system we inherited from thousands of years of human evolution. Your ancestors survived saber-toothed tigers and unpredictable dangers by being hyper-aware, by scanning their environment, by reacting quickly. And now, your brain is still trying to do the same thing. But instead of tigers, it's traffic jams, deadlines, social pressure, bills, Loneliness. Your phone lighting up at 3 a.m. The problem isn't that you feel anxious. The problem is that your body sometimes can't tell the difference between danger and discomfort. Imagine a smoke alarm in your kitchen. Now picture that smoke alarm going off it when there's a fire, but every time you toast a piece of bread. It's loud. It's jarring. It feels like an emergency. But is there really a fire? No. There's just a little smoke. The alarm is working, it's just overreacting. That's what happens in anxiety. Your nervous system is sounding the alarm, even when there's no real danger, just a perceived one. And you know what? That doesn't make you broken. That makes you human. We all have moments where our system gets overwhelmed. And the truth is, some of us were raised in environments that made anxiety a constant background noise. Maybe you grew up always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe you were told to calm down when you were scared. Maybe you never felt fully safe emotionally, physically, or mentally. If your baseline has always been tension, then of course your system is hypervigilant. That doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your body adapted to survive. What looks like anxiety on the outside is often just a body remembering what it felt like to not be safe. But now you're not in that old story anymore. You're not stuck there. You have the power to respond differently now. Not by shaming yourself for feeling anxious, but by saying, "Hey, thank you. I know you're trying to protect me, but I'm okay now." When I personally began seeing anxiety not as an enemy, but as a messenger, everything shifted. I remember walking into a meeting, heart pounding, palm sweating, mind racing, and thinking, why am I like this? Why can't I be normal? But slowly, over time, I replaced that question with a new one. What is my body trying to tell me right now? And more often than not, it was something like, you care deeply about this. You want to do well. You're afraid of judgment, but you also want to be seen. Suddenly, my anxiety wasn't something I had to fight. It was something I could listen to. And from that place of listening, I could offer myself compassion, not criticism. Curiosity, not condemnation. Let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped labeling your anxiety as a problem and started seeing it as a signal? What would change if, instead of asking what's wrong with me, you asked, what does this feeling need from me right now? Maybe it needs rest. Maybe it needs safety. Maybe it just needs to be acknowledged instead of ignored. You don't heal anxiety by running from it. You heal by turning toward it with softness, with stillness, with truth. And yes, it's hard, especially in a world that glorifies hustle, toughness, and pretending everything is fine. But the bravest thing you can do is to feel what's real, to honor it, to hold space for it without letting it control you. Because guess what? You are not your anxiety. You are the one who is aware of it. And that awareness, that still, quiet presence within you, is stronger than any fear you've ever felt. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to come home to yourself. Take a breath with me. Inhale. Exhale. This is just the beginning. There are 2 more lies we need to talk about, and the next one might be something you believed your whole life. Stay with me. We're about to go even deeper. Let me ask you something you may have never asked yourself out loud. Have you spent most of your life trying to get rid of your anxiety just so you can finally feel happy? If you're nodding right now, or if your heart just sank a little bit, this part is for you. Because this right here is. And it's a big one. I have to eliminate anxiety completely before I can feel peace, joy, or fulfillment. Let's break this down together. Somewhere along the way, many of us were sold the idea that happiness is this perfect, anxiety-free, stress-free, conflict-free state of mind. Like, unless your mind is calm, your heart is still, and your calendar is empty, you're not truly okay. But here's the bold truth. You don't have to be free from anxiety to live a meaningful, joyful, peaceful life. You really don't. In fact, the more you fight anxiety, the more you fuel it. Let me explain. Think about quicksand. What happens when you struggle against it? You sink faster. That's anxiety. The harder you try to force it out, be overthinking, overworking, avoiding, distracting, the deeper it digs in. It's like trying to quiet a barking dog by yelling back. Now both of you are loud, and nobody's calming down. The paradox of anxiety is this: the more you resist it, the more power you give it. Have you ever said something like, "I just want this feeling to go away. I can't be productive when I'm anxious. I can't relax until I calm down"? Those thoughts are totally normal, but they're also traps. They create a war between you and your own nervous system. But here's another way to look at it. What if anxiety didn't have to leave for you to be okay? What if peace wasn't about absence, but acceptance? Because real happiness, the kind that's rooted, grounded, deep down in your bones, doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Now, I want to be clear in not saying you should ignore anxiety or pretend it's fine when it's not. What I'm saying is this: peace doesn't come from controlling your emotions. It comes from building a new relationship with them. Let me tell you something that changed everything for me. Anxiety doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be understood. I used to think I had to conquer it like it was an enemy. I thought healing meant making it disappear completely. But the truth is, anxiety is a visitor. It comes, it goes. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet. And just like any visitor, you can learn to set boundaries with it, without needing to slam the door in its face. You can feel anxious and still make a phone call. You can feel anxious and still go to work. You can feel anxious and still say "I love you." You can feel anxious and still smile, laugh, create, grow. Your anxiety may ride in the car with you, but it does not get to drive. When I finally stopped trying to get rid of my anxiety and instead started making space for it, something unexpected happened. It softened. It lost its grip. Not because it disappeared, but because I stopped feeding it with fear. And guess what? That's where the peace came from. Not from silence. Not from a perfect meditation habit or a flawless mental health plan. It came from finally giving myself permission to feel what I feel without judgment. Let me ask you this: what if anxiety wasn't the problem? What if your reaction to anxiety, that panic, that resistance, that shame was what truly kept you stuck? What if happiness was never on the other side of fixing yourself, but was actually right here, in this messy, imperfect, human moment with all its emotions, all its unknowns? Think about it. Can you be nervous and grateful at the same time? Can you feel fear and still move forward? Can you have a racing heart and still take a breath? Of course you can. That's resilience. That's strength. That's real, grounded happiness, not the kind that waits for life to be perfect, but the kind that blooms right in the middle of the chaos. The truth is, no one walks through this life anxiety-free. Not the confident speaker on stage. Not the yogi with the perfect Instagram poses. Not even the mental health coach or meditation teacher. We all feel it some days more than others. But the people who live with peace, they've simply learned to stop running from it. They've learned to say, "Okay, you're here. I see you. You can sit over there while I live my life anyway." That's emotional freedom. So here's what I want to leave you with today. You don't need to eliminate anxiety to live a beautiful life. You don't need to feel calm 24/7 to be spiritually grounded. And you don't need to fix yourself to be worthy of joy. You're allowed to feel messy and still move forward. You're allowed to feel fear and still choose love. You're allowed to feel anxious and still live your life with power, purpose, and peace. Because happiness isn't the absence of hard emotions. It's the presence of compassion for yourself in the middle of them. Take a breath with me now. Inhale, exhale, and say this quietly in your mind. I don't have to be anxiety-free to be happy. I just have to be here, right now, as I am. You are already enough. You always have been. And your journey toward peace? It doesn't start with perfection. It starts with permission. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood truths about anxiety. The belief that anxiety is always bad. Let me ask you something honest. Have you ever felt anxious before a job interview? Before a first date? Before stepping into a new opportunity that could change your life? What if I told you that anxiety might actually be a good thing? Not easy, not comfortable, but meaningful. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that if something feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. That if our heart is racing, if our stomach is in knots, if our thoughts feel too loud, then we've failed somehow. That we're too sensitive, too emotional, too weak. But pause for a moment and think about this. Is everything uncomfortable automatically bad? Of course not. Working out is uncomfortable. Speaking your truth is uncomfortable. Growth, real, deep, transformative growth is always uncomfortable. Discomfort isn't the enemy. It's often the invitation. And anxiety. Anxiety is your body's way of saying, hey, something here matters. That nervous energy before a speech? It's not weakness, it's adrenaline, preparing you to be fully present. That racing heart before a tough conversation? It's not panic, it's care. It's connection. It's the fear of hurting someone you love or being misunderstood. What if anxiety is not a red flag, but a highlighter pointing towards something that actually deserves your attention? Here's the truth. Anxiety doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it means meaning. Let that sink in. We tend to view anxiety as something we need to suppress, escape, or medicate away at all costs. But what if your anxiety is trying to help you, not sabotage you? Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when I thought anxiety was ruining everything. My confidence, my sleep, my relationships. It felt like a wall between me and the life I wanted. But one day, during a really intense season of overwhelm, I decided to stop fighting it. I asked myself, what are you trying to show me? And the answer changed everything. Anxiety, for me, wasn't just fear. It was a signal that I had ignored my boundaries, that I had said yes too many times when I meant no, that I was chasing someone else's version of success instead of my own truth. In that moment, anxiety became my teacher, not my enemy, because sometimes the most uncomfortable feelings hold the most important messages. It's easy to label anxiety as bad simply because it feels bad. But feeling bad and being bad are not the same thing. Think about hunger. It's uncomfortable yet necessary. It reminds you to nourish yourself. Pain. It's unpleasant, but it protects you. It tells you something's not right. And anxiety. It can be a compass, pointing you toward what matters. Toward the conversation you've been avoiding. The dream you've been ignoring. The life you know deep down you're meant to live. Maybe anxiety isn't trying to stop you. Maybe it's trying to wake you up. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped demonizing your anxiety? What if you gave it a seat at the table without letting it take the lead? What if, instead of shutting it down, you listened? I'm not saying anxiety is easy, or that every anxious moment is some divine signal. Sometimes it's just a tired brain, a stressed out nervous system, or a trigger from the past. But even then, it's not useless. It's information. And when we slow down enough to get curious, rather than reactive, we stop fighting our feelings. We start working with them. That's where the shift happens. That's where you stop being a prisoner of your own mind and start becoming its partner. So here's the truth no one ever told us growing up. You don't have to be anxiety-free to be powerful. You don't have to be calm 100% of the time to be grounded. You can feel nervous, overwhelmed, unsure, and still be aligned with your purpose. In fact, the moments that matter the most, they usually come wrapped in anxiety. A new beginning, a big decision, a vulnerable truth. You'll feel your heart beat faster. Your mind may race. You'll doubt. You'll shake. But that doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're alive. So today, instead of judging yourself for feeling anxious, ask yourself, what's the message behind this feeling? Maybe your body's telling you you've been carrying too much. Maybe your heart's whispering, you care more than you realize. Maybe it's time to make a change you've been avoiding for far too long. Because you know what's worse than anxiety? A life that's numb. A life without passion. A life where you stop showing up for the things that make your soul light up just because they make your palms sweat. That's not peace. That's fear in disguise. True peace isn't the absence of emotion. It's the presence of understanding. It's being able to hold space for your fear and still choose to move forward. So the next time anxiety comes knocking, instead of slamming the door, open it gently, look it in the eyes, and ask, "What are you trying to tell me?" Because sometimes, the message anxiety brings is the exact thing you need to hear to step into your next chapter. Let's talk about a belief that's deeply rooted in how we view healing, and it's holding a lot of people back. Only therapy or medication can help me with my anxiety. Now let me be clear, therapy can be life-changing. Medication can be life-saving. And if you're using either of those tools right now, there's absolutely no shame in that. None. We need to normalize support. We need to make mental health treatment accessible, respected, and understood. But this is where the lie sneaks in. That healing only exists in a prescription bottle. That peace only happens once someone else fixes us. That we're powerless until we get external help. That is not the full picture. And if you've ever believed that, I want you to know something. Your healing didn't begin the moment you got the appointment. It began the moment you became aware that something needed to change. Let that sink in. Healing starts in awareness. In a quiet moment where you finally say, "I'm not okay, and I want better." That moment might happen in a therapy session. Or it might happen at 2 a.m. when you're lying awake with your thoughts. It might happen after a panic attack, or during a walk in nature, or while hearing something in a video like this one that just hits different. Healing is not a place. It's a process. And it starts within you. Now, don't get me wrong. There's absolutely value in science-backed tools. But we often underestimate the simple, powerful practices that are already available to us every single day. Let me ask you, when was the last time you really tuned into your breath? When was the last time you paused not to scroll, not to distract, but to simply be? When was the last time you let your feet touch the ground barefoot and remembered, "I'm alive. I'm supported. I'm here"? These small things, they're not silly. They're not spiritual fluff. They're how you start to retrain your nervous system from survival mode to safety mode. Deep breathing, cold exposure, grounding practices, journaling, daily check-ins, sitting in silence, moving your body with intention. These are acts of self-regulation. They hold more power than most people realize. I remember when I first started doing breathwork consistently. I had been chasing every productivity hack, every morning routine, every book on performance. But I was still running mentally, emotionally. Then someone told me, "You can't outthink a dysregulated nervous system." And it hit me. I had spent years trying to solve an emotional problem with intellectual tools, trying to think my way out of anxiety. But my body, it needed something else. It needed presence, stillness, trust. That's when everything shifted. So, does that mean you shouldn't see a therapist or consider medication? Not at all. But don't make the mistake of believing that healing only happens in a professional's office. It also happens in the space between. In the choices you make when no one is watching. In the way you breathe when things feel heavy. In the way you speak to yourself when no one hears. You have more power than you think. That doesn't mean the road will be easy. It just means the road is yours to walk. So what if you gave yourself permission to start where you are? Not perfectly. Not with all the answers. But with the intention to befriend your own body. To listen. To soften. To choose a healing response instead of a reactive one. What if healing didn't look like a breakthrough, but like a series of small, consistent, loving choices? Would you trust that? Because the truth is, healing is not something someone gives you. It's something you grow into choice by choice, breath by breath. And if you've ever told yourself, I can't do this alone, let me lovingly remind you, you've already made it through 100% of your hardest days. You're still here. And there is wisdom in your body, strength in your softness, power in your presence. Medication can help. Therapy can help. But don't ever forget, so can a walk in nature. So can breath work. So can stillness. So can kindness to yourself. Healing doesn't just live in clinics. It lives in your choices, in your breath, in your body. You are not waiting to be rescued. You're remembering who you are. So today waits one small choice you can make to return to yourself. That's where healing begins. Let me ask you something deeply honest. Have you ever looked around and thought, why does everyone else seem to have it all together while I'm barely hanging on? If you've ever felt that way, if you've ever believed it even for a moment that you're the only one struggling, you're not alone. And more importantly, you never were. This is one of the most painful lies anxiety tells us. Everyone else is fine. You're the problem. But I want you to pause and take this in. The world you see on social media, that polished version full of smiling faces, filtered vacations, perfect morning routines, and success stories. It's a highlight reel, not real life. Behind the smiles, there are people battling burnout, fighting quiet panic attacks in bathroom stalls, crying themselves to sleep while replying "I'm fine" in texts. Behind that confident coworker, the successful entrepreneur, the always positive friend, there might be sleepless nights, deep insecurities, and wounds you can't see. Anxiety doesn't care about status. It doesn't skip the strong. It doesn't avoid the successful. It's everywhere, silently stitched into the background of more lives than you'll ever know. And yet, when you're in it, when your chest is tight, your thoughts are spiraling, and you can't explain why, you suddenly feel like crying or escaping or shutting down. It feels like you're the only one. That isolation, that loneliness, it's not your fault. It's part of the trap. You see, anxiety thrives in silence, in secrecy, in the stories we never speak out loud. But the moment you name it, the moment you say, hey, I'm not okay right now, you begin to break its power. Let me tell you something personal. There was a time in my life where I looked successful on the outside, working hard, smiling often, showing up for everyone else. But inside, I was drowning. I was anxious every day. I woke up with tightness in my chest. I went to sleep with racing thoughts. But I told no one, because I was afraid of being judged, of being seen as weak, of being a burden. And do you know what that silence did? It made the anxiety worse. It grew in the dark, until one day broke. I had no more energy left to pretend. So I did something terrifying. I spoke up. And you know what happened? People didn't walk away. They leaned in. I started hearing stories I had never imagined. Friends, mentors, even people I admired told me too. That's when I realized something powerful. You are never the only one. You've just been surrounded by others hiding their pain too. The moment we begin to open up gently, honestly, without shame, something shifts. The walls come down. The masks drop. And suddenly, you're not alone in the dark anymore. You're walking beside others who've been there too. Let me ask you, what would happen if we all stopped pretending we were okay when we weren't? What would happen if we saw vulnerability not as weakness but as courage? What if asking for help was actually one of the strongest things you could ever do? We live in a world that rewards perfection, but we heal through connection. And that connection doesn't require you to have it all figured out. It just asks you to be real. You don't need to share your pain with everyone, but you do deserve a space where you don't have to carry it alone. That space might be a therapist's office. It might be a support group, a trusted friend, even a journal to begin with. But whatever it, let it be honest. Because silence isn't strength. Strength is saying, "This is hard, and I'm still showing up." Strength is being seen in your truth and staying soft anyway. You don't have to be better to be worthy of love. You don't have to be healed to be worthy of support. You don't have to be fixed to finally feel free. You just have to be human as you are, not as you think you should be. And here's something I wish someone told me earlier. You may feel alone, but someone out there is praying for the courage to say the same thing you're afraid to admit. And when you share your truth, you don't just heal yourself. You give someone else permission to heal too. So if you're watching this right now and thinking, "Maybe I'm not the only one," you're right. You never were. And you never have to go through this in silence again. Take a breath with me. Inhale, exhale, and repeat this in your heart. I am not alone. I am not broken. And I am allowed to ask for help. That's not weakness. That's where real healing begins. Let me start by asking you this. Have you ever opened up about your anxiety, only to be told, "You just need to be more positive"? Don't think like that. It's all in your head. Or the worst one. Good vibes only. If you've ever heard those words and felt frustrated, unseen, or even ashamed for how you feel, you're not alone. And more importantly, you are not wrong. Let's expose one of the most misleading and dangerous myths in the self-help world. Lie 6. Just think positive, and everything will be okay. It sounds comforting. It sounds empowering. And on the surface side sounds like good advice. But here's the problem. Anxiety doesn't live in your thoughts alone. It lives in your body. It's not just a mindset, it's a full body experience. You can't positive think your way out of a racing heart. You can't affirm away sweaty palms or shallow breathing or the sudden wave of dread that hits you in traffic, at the grocery store, or in the middle of a conversation. Toxic positivity belief that we should only focus on the good and ignore the rest doesn't heal us. It silences us. It shames us. It teaches us to hide how we really feel, instead of learning how to listen to it. And when you constantly tell yourself, "Just think better thoughts," and it doesn't work, you start to blame yourself. You think, "I must be doing it wrong." Or worse, "Maybe I really am broken." But here's what no one told you. You're not broken. You're just disconnected from your body. So let's shift this conversation. Instead of asking, "How do I think more positively?" ask this instead. What is my body trying to tell me right now? Because the truth is, anxiety isn't just mental noise. It's a signal, a whisper from your nervous system saying, something feels unsafe. And when we respond to that whisper with logic or forced positivity, it often doesn't land. Because our body isn't looking for words. It's looking for safety. So what do? You stop fighting thoughts with more thoughts. You drop out of your head and into your body. That's where healing begins. Let's get practical. Right now, take a breath. Yes, right here, right now. Inhale slowly. Exhale deeply. Now feel your feet on the ground. Wiggle your toes if you can. Notice the weight of your body being held up by the earth beneath you. Listen to the sound in the room. Feel the air touching your skin. This right here is presence. And presence is where anxiety loses its power. Because anxiety feeds on fear of the future. It thrives in spirals of what if. But the body lives in right now. And sometimes your greatest healing doesn't come from changing a thought. It comes from returning to this moment. Stillness, breath, grounding. These simple tools can do what hours of overthinking cannot. Because when you come back to your body, you come back to yourself. And the truth is, you've always been your own safest place. Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when I was obsessed with mindset. I read every book, listened to every podcast, wrote affirmations in my journal every single morning. I am calm. I am safe. I am free. But then I'd get in the car and feel a full-blown wave of panic hit out of nowhere. And those words? They felt meaningless. Until I realized my body didn't need new thoughts. It needed new experiences of safety. It needed slowness, gentle movement, time outside, rest, touch, breath. I started learning the language of my body, and suddenly everything changed. The anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but I stopped fearing it. I stopped fighting it, and I started feeling it fully without judgment. And from that space of honesty came peace. So nothing positively isn't bad. There's power in hope. There's beauty in intention. But when positivity becomes a mask, when it asks you to ignore the truth of your emotional experience, that's not healing. That's pretending. And pretending is exhausting. So today, I want to offer you something even stronger than positivity. Compassion. Compassion says, it's okay to not be okay. Compassion says, you don't have to fake it. Compassion says, let's slow down together. Let's breathe. It welcomes your experience without needing to fix it right away. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to get better for a moment and just let yourself be here. Fully, honestly, softly. That's when the shift begins. So, the next time anxiety shows up, don't rush to replace it with sunshine and rainbows. Just notice it. Breathe with it. Ask what it needs. Offer your presence instead of pressure. Because sometimes, healing doesn't come from the next positive thought. It comes from the next quiet breath. Take one with me now. Inhale. Exhale. And remember this. You don't have to force joy. You can invite peace in the silence, in the stillness, in your body. You don't need more positivity. You need permission to be exactly as you are. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Let's get honest about something that anxiety whispers again and again when you're in the middle of it. This is never going to end. If you've ever laid awake at 3 a.m. with your heart racing, if you've ever felt trapped inside your own head unable to slow it down, unable to get out, if you've ever thought, I can't do this anymore, and I don't see a way out, you are not broken. You are not weak. And you are not alone. But let me gently tell you something that may feel hard to believe when you're deep in it. This will not last forever. Not the fear. Not the fog. Not the restlessness or panic or heavy sadness. I know it feels like it will. Because anxiety is a master of time distortion. When it hits, everything feels like always. You think, I've always been like this. You fear, I'll always be like this. But that's a lie. Let's speak some truth into that space. Everything changes. Everything heals. Everything shifts, especially when you stop running from what hurts and start leaning into what's real. Your brain is not fixed. Your nervous system is not stuck. Your story is not over. Neuroplasticity is real. The human body and mind were built to adapt, to evolve, to recover. You can rewire your response. You can unlearn old survival patterns. You can gently, slowly, patiently teach your body what safety feels like again. And this isn't just theory. It's lived experience. I say this not as an expert talking from a stage, but as a human being who's been there. I used to wake up with dread in my chest before I even opened my eyes. I couldn't sit in silence without panicking. I couldn't finish a full night's sleep. I feared phone calls, crowds, quiet moments. I would whisper to myself in the dark, will this ever get better? And if you're whispering that right now, let me be the voice that says, yes, it can. Yes, it does. Yes, it will. No, the healing wasn't instant. It wasn't a miracle or magic fix, but it happened moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath. Not because the anxiety disappeared, but because I stopped letting it lead. I learned how to stop feeding it. I learned how to stay with myself when it came up, instead of abandoning myself in fear. I built little rituals of safety, breathing, grounding, speaking to myself with compassion instead of criticism. And little by little the anxiety softened. It didn't vanish, but it lost its grip. And now, I wake up in peace more days than I don't. I sit in silence and feel calm instead of chaos. I still have anxious thoughts, but they don't have me. And that's the shift. Healing isn't about never feeling anxious again. It's about not believing that the anxiety defines you. It doesn't. It's not your identity. It's not your future. You are more than your worst moment. You are more than your toughest season. And you are definitely more than the story your fear has been trying to write for you. So let me ask you this. What if today wasn't the end, but the turning point? What if things could shift not all at once, but one breath at a time? What if you didn't need to fix yourself to be more gentle with yourself? Because the truth is, anxiety thrives in urgency. It tells you, something must change right now. But healing often begins in the opposite energy. Patience, presence, permission to be where you are. You don't need to climb the mountain today. You just need to take the next honest step. Maybe that's drinking water. Maybe that's sitting outside for 5 minutes. Maybe it's speaking your truth to someone safe. Maybe it's simply saying, I'm struggling, but I'm still here. And that matters. That counts. That is healing. If no one has told you this yet, let me say it loud and clear. You are already on your way. You're already growing even when it feels like you're standing still. You're already healing even if all you've done today is breathe and not give up. Because no, this won't last forever. No emotion ever does. Storms pass. Waves rise and fall. Seasons change. And so will this. Let's take a deep breath together. Inhale. Exhale. Now say it with me out loud or in your heart. I trust that this feeling is temporary. I trust that healing is happening. And I trust that I am not stuck. I am shifting. This is not forever. It's just for now. And there is so much more waiting on the other side of this season. Keep going. Keep breathing. Keep coming back to you. You are not your anxiety. You are the one walking through it with courage, with grace, and with far more strength than you think. Let's pause. Right here. Right now. And take a deep breath together. Breathe in. Breathe out. Let it all settle. Because what you've just done by watching this video, by sitting with these truths, is no small thing. You've started to unlearn some of the biggest lies about anxiety. Lies that have kept you stuck. Lies that have made you doubt yourself. Lies that have convinced you that peace isn't possible unless you become someone else. But now, you know better. You've seen what's underneath those lies. And more importantly, you're starting to remember what's already inside you. The truth is, you are not broken. You are not alone. And you are not powerless. Anxiety may be part of your story, but it does not get to write the ending. You are allowed to feel fear and still move forward. You are allowed to feel anxious and still create, still love, still live. You are allowed to pause, to breathe, to cry and still be strong. Because true strength isn't about always being calm. It's about returning to yourself again and again, even when the storm is loud. That moment when you stop and breathe deeply. That's healing. That moment when you listen instead of react. That's healing. That moment when you say, I'm not okay, but I'm still here. That's healing. Healing isn't about escaping the storm. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. And that's something no one can take from you. So, if this video gave you a new insight, if it gave you a fresh perspective here, just a moment of calm in your day, please consider sharing it with someone who might need it too. Because you never know what kind of storm someone else is going through. You might be the reminder they've been waiting for. And remember this. Personal growth isn't about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to who you've always been. You are never too far gone. You were just a few breaths away from your center. And now you're finding your way back. I'm grateful you chose to spend a few minutes with me here today. Take this peace with you. Let it live in your breath, in your body, in your choices. And when anxiety comes knocking against us, it will. You'll know. You don't have to run. You already have everything you need within you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and keep walking your path, one soft step at a time.